بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The 17th of Ramadan, the second year of the Hijrah, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims with him are meeting the non-believers in a decisive battle. The first major battle between truth and falsehood, between Islam and the pagans and those who were with them. They did not come requesting truth. They did not come except to avenge in arrogance and in falsehood. They came to kill the Muslims and to show them that they are insisting on associating others with Allah the Almighty and on defeating Islam. The Muslims had to fight, not for their lives, but for a just cause, to defend Islam, to defend Quran, and to defend the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were 314 men, lightly armed, while the mushrikun, while the polytheists were over 1,000, and they were heavily armed. The skirmishes began with a duel when Utbah and his brother Shayba and the son of Utbah, Al-Walid, came out to fight. And the Prophet ﷺ sent 3 of his relatives, Ubaydah ibn al-Harith, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib, to fight them, and they killed them. In seconds, 3 of the leaders of Quraysh were killed in front of the army, and then they could not withdraw themselves. They started to engage with the Muslim army. The Prophet ﷺ instructed his army not to draw their swords until they are at point-blank range. He instructed them to hit them with arrows so that they would kill as many as possible before physical contact. And this took place. And the mushrikun, the polytheists, started falling in numbers. And they were scattered left, right, and center, while the Muslims were all fighting in one united row against the forces of evil. One of the companions, his name is Ukasha ibn Muhsan, he had a sword in his hand, and whenever he fought with that sword, it broke. So he took another one, and a third one, and a fourth one. He went to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet gave him a branch of a tree, and he shook it, and it became a sword second to none. And this is one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, Ukasha ibn Muhsan is different than Abu Dujana, and Abu Dujana, Simak ibn Kharsha, is a different man. We're going to talk about him in the Battle of Uhud and about his bravery. But Ukasha ibn Muhsan, he is the famous Ukasha in the famous hadith in Arabic, where we know that the Prophet said, "Sabaqaka biha Ukasha." Ukasha was once at the Prophet ﷺ's gathering and the majlis, and he heard the Prophet say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that there will be 70,000 of my followers entering paradise without punishment and without questioning. And Ukasha immediately stood up and said, "O Prophet of Allah, pray to Allah that I may be among them." So he said, "You are among them." And this was not a grant or a gift from the Prophet ﷺ. He was told by Allah that Ukasha is among them. So another one stood up and said, "O Prophet of Allah, let me also be among them." He said, the Prophet, "Well, Ukasha took the lead, and he's the only one that I was ordered to give the glad tiding." This Ukasha ibn Muhsan fought in the cause of Allah not only on the Battle of Badr, but all throughout the battles of Islam, and he died 10 years later.
Sheikh, we can say the Prophet ﷺ engaged in many battles. Does this also prove his mercy to mankind in the defense of Islam?
Well, this is a manifestation of his mercy, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was not ordered to kill everyone, and he did not kill everyone. He took prisoners, and he did not even keep the prisoners in camps with, as we will hear inshallah, in poor standards of living. He did not torture them, he did not abuse them. He was a mercy because his mission was to get the people out of darkness into the light. Now, if there's an individual who claims to be a Muslim and does otherwise, he should not be, or Islam should not be responsible for his action. Likewise, we cannot blame the Christians for atrocities because their religion does not call them to be so violent and to do such unlawful things.
But again, it does, what the brothers, it does seem like the war has many fronts, because if the Muslims, for example, one individual does something which Islam does not appreciate or promote him, then Islam together is with his bad action. But for example, in Palestine or some actions of some Western soldiers or anywhere in the world, their religion is not highlighted with this. So it does have a...
Yes, this is true. Unfortunately, whenever a Muslim does something, they don't mention his nationality or his race. So if a person from Yemen, for example, does something, they wouldn't say a Yemeni did. They would say a Muslim. If a Muslim from Chechnya did something, they would not say a Chechnyan rebel did this. They would say a Muslim terrorist. But whenever an American or a Britisher or European or an Indian or a Chinese who is a non-Muslim does something, or even an Israeli, you would never hear someone say a Jew did this. Like Goldstein, when he went into the mosque where the Muslims were praying and he started shooting 30 or 40 while praying Fajr, morning prayer, nobody said a Jew extremist. And they would say that someone who was mentally ill. He's an Israeli, he's from the reserves, he's a soldier, but they never attach this to their religion, except Islam, so that people would have Islamophobia. People would fear Islam. Well, going back to the Seerah again, the battle now is taking place, and the Muslims and the pagans are fighting for their causes, each for their different and individual cause. We come to see that they are falling in numbers, great numbers, and not only small people, because those who came out were the leaders of Quraysh, and those who followed them were the elite of that city and that tribe. So it was an issue of honor. It was an issue of pride. They went with arrogance, with their wealth, with their women, with their slaves to play the music and chant and play the duf and tambourine and so on. So they had no idea what was going to face them. So the minute they started seeing people fall down, they started to scatter here and there. They just wanted to flee the battlefield. And only few remained fighting in defiance and in disbelief. This cannot be happening. This is a nightmare. Something has to change. And they stood in defiance, trying to change things, but it was inevitable that it was their death coming to them. I think we have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah, we will be right back.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
The best 10 days of our life
and proclaim the pilgrimage among men. They will come to thee on foot and mounted on every camel, lean on account of journeys through deep and distant mountain highways.
A unique opportunity to get closer to Allah. To learn more, follow their upcoming series on the virtues of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah.
لبيك اللهم لبيك
لبيك اللهم لبيك
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك
لا شريك لك لبيك
إن الحمد
إن الحمد
والنعمة
والنعمة
لك والملك
لك والملك
لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك
لبيك اللهم
Learn how we can draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these days which are full of blessings and great rewards in the virtues of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Tomorrow at 11 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12:30 p.m. India on Peace TV.
إن الحمد
Dialogue. Discussion. Debate. Rebuttal. Conclusion.
Eliminate misconceptions about religion. Get enlightened.
Witness Dr. Zakir Naik in a battle of words in Crossfire every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 10 a.m. India on Peace TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just before the break, we were talking about the many deaths in the polytheist army. And among the very prominent ones was, of course, Abu Jahl Amr ibn Hisham. His name was Abu Al Hakeem, which means that the father of Al Hakim, or the wisdom, or the wise one. And it was changed to Abu Jahl, the father of ignorance, because of him rejecting Islam. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, one of the first to embrace Islam, and one of the richest merchants of Islam, and one of the 10 that the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that they are in paradise. He says, and he's reporting what took place on the day of Badr, I was in the row, and to the left and right of me, there were two youngsters. They were about 17, 18 years old. You know, in a battlefield, you would like to be surrounded by strong men so that you can guarantee that your back is protected or your sides are protected. But when you're surrounded by weak people, then you have to pay attention to the four directions around you. And it's the sword, the spear that you're fighting with. So he didn't like this. He wasn't at ease because of these two youngsters beside him. He said, what are they going to do? So one of them whispered in his ear, the one in his right. He said, Uncle, do you know Abu Jahl? So he told him, yes, I do. Why? He said, well, I heard that he harmed the Prophet ﷺ. He slandered him, and he used to abuse him when he was in Mecca. And I swore by Allah, if I see him, if I set eyes on him, I'm going to slaughter him. And the other one on his left whispered again. He didn't want his friend to hear. Uncle, do you know Abu Jahl? He said, yes, why? And he said exactly the same thing. So when they said this, he felt relieved. He said, well, now I'm between two great warriors with a target, with an ambition that is second to none. So he was at ease. They were fighting. And the minute he saw Abu Jahl on his ride, he told them, this is Abu Jahl, go and get him. Immediately, one of them jumped at him and chopped his leg off. And that was Mu'adh ibn Amr ibn al-Jamuh. May Allah be pleased with him and with his father. His father, by the way, is Amr ibn al-Jamuh, who used to limp. And his story will come to us on the Battle of Uhud. He was an old man. And his sons would not allow him to go to Badr. Said, no, you're an old man and you are limping. One of your knees is not functioning. So you stay, you cannot fight. And this guy fought until he died on the Battle of Uhud, and he is in Jannah, as we are told by the Prophet ﷺ. So his son, Mu'adh ibn Amr ibn al-Jamuh, he chopped off the leg of Abu Jahl. His son, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, chopped off his hand, his arm. And they went elsewhere, engaging in other fights. Imam al-Dhahabi in Siyar A'lam al-Nubala tells us that Mu'adh is saying about himself, I fought the rest of the day with my hand dangling with part of the skin. And I kept on fighting and fighting and fighting, but when I felt that it's a hurdle, an obstacle in my way, I just put my foot on it and, cracked it out.
It annoyed him.
It annoyed him.
Yeah.
And then he fought the rest of the day with one arm. Al-Dhahabi says that, by Allah, this is bravery. Not someone with a thorn or a needle gets into him, he starts to cry and shout and moan. The other one was Mu'awwadh ibn al-Afra. And he also had to hit Abu Jahl and wound him severely, and he died in the battle also of Badr, as one of the reports say.
Both of the youngsters were both killed also?
No. Mu'adh lived. And the other one of the reports say that he lived, and the other say no, he was a martyr in the battle of Badr. Actually, they themselves did not kill Abu Jahl, but they wounded him severely and he fell on the ground. And the one who killed him was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the close one of the Prophet ﷺ. And he narrated lots and lots of hadiths because he was close to the Prophet. And he used to carry his sandals and he used to serve the Prophet ﷺ. He was a shepherd in Mecca at the very early time. And we are also told that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was so thin to the extent that the companions used to laugh of his thinness. In one hadith, the Prophet asked him to get something from a tree. So he climbed up the tree, and while he was up in the tree, the companions were almost on their back laughing. So the Prophet said, what are you laughing for? The Prophet of Allah, look at his legs. It's like, this is from my side, not from the hadith. It's like billiard acoustics. It's so thin. It's so funny. The Prophet ﷺ corrected the way they look at things. Don't be deceived by how things look. He told them that they are thin, but by Allah, they are heavier at the side of Allah than the mountain of Uhud. Because they carry a man of faith and belief. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was very tiny, with a very strong heart. He saw Abu Jahl lying on the floor. And Abu Jahl used to beat him and used to torture him and used to mock out of him.
That was in Mecca.
That was in Mecca, of course. The hadith tells us that when he saw him, he told him, are you Abu Jahl? And Abu Jahl looked at him in his wounds and said, are you the shepherd? He remembered him. So he told him, by Allah, you are disgraced by the swords of Allah. And he said, well, what do you have to blame me? Still in defiance while dying.
SubhanAllah.
What do you blame me for? My people killed me. So what's wrong in that? I was killed in the battlefield. So the hadith said, he climbed his chest just to, show you how big Abu Jahl was and how tiny Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He climbed over his chest. The guy was lying on the ground. And he held his head and he chopped his head off. This was the end of Abu Jahl. Also, one of the leaders of Quraysh was Umayyah ibn Khalaf. As we know, Umayyah ibn Khalaf was a vicious leader. He used to torture, do you remember?
The early days, the early slaves?
Yes. Who? in particular?
Bilal.
Bilal,
Yeah.
the Abyssinian slave, the only one who would not give in. All the companions who were tortured, as Ammar ibn Yasir, may Allah be pleased with him, and with his father Yasir, says that they all gave in. After being tortured, they said, okay, we don't like Islam, we don't like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't like the Quran. And this was okay, because it was revealed in the Quran. Ammar ibn Yasir once came to the Prophet crying. So he said, Ammar, what's wrong? And we know that Ammar's mother was the first martyr in Islam, Sumayya. She was also a slave, and she was killed, and the killer was Abu Jahl himself. He put a spear into her and killed her while being tortured. So Ammar ibn Yasir, who was also used to be tortured with his father, with his mother, came crying to the Prophet in Mecca once. And the Prophet told him, what's wrong? So he said, O Prophet of Allah, they kept on torturing me until I was out of my mind, and I had to say something bad about you. And this is blasphemy. If you say something about the Prophet ﷺ to a Muslim, this is blasphemy. And that is why when they made these cartoons mocking of the Prophet ﷺ, it was outrageous for the Muslims. Yet we do not approve of any of the demonstrations or of the violence that took place or any of the killings, because as Muslims we know that our Prophet is above all of these things. Yet we know that the non-Muslims will keep on doing this forever. So we should not go down to their level. The Prophet ﷺ is praised. His name is Muhammad, the praised one. And that is why the Prophet, whenever the Jews and the non-Muslims used to curse him and say and give him names, he used to tell his companions, Subhanallah, they are cursing and slandering someone, his name is praised. And this is throughout time, that the Prophet ﷺ's name is always exalted and high. It's mentioned 5 times a day, everywhere in the adhan. When you say, I testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Ammar ibn Yasir went and said, I'm sorry, he's crying, he's in tears. They tortured me so bad, I had to say something bad about you. What was the reaction of the Prophet ﷺ? He told him, how do you find your heart? Okay, you spoke about me in a bad sense, but what was it, your intention? What's inside of your heart? He said, oh Prophet of Allah, I'm a believer. I'm a faithful man. I believe in you. I love you. My heart is calm with tranquility and the belief of Islam. So the Prophet tells him, if they go back to torture you, go back to saying what you said about me. You have the permission to do so. So Umayyah ibn Khalaf used to torture Bilal, and Bilal was the only one who would not give in. Everybody else did what Ammar did, except Bilal. They tortured him so bad, yet he never ever accepted to say anything bad about Islam or to reject Islam. And then Umayyah ibn Khalaf with his son Ali were there. Abdurrahman ibn Auf gathered the shields of those whom he killed. And in Islam, if you kill someone, you have the right to take his belongings. So these shields mean money to these poor Muslims. So he was having these shields, and he met Umayyah ibn Khalaf hiding in the midst of the fighting. So he said, Abdurrahman, you know that I'm a very wealthy man, so as a prisoner, I'm much, much better for you than these shields. Leave these shields and take me as a prisoner, and I'll pay you whatever you want. He just wanted to save his life. So he said, okay, it's a good deal. He threw the shields, and he went with Ali ibn Umayyah and Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And as they were going, Bilal ibn Rabah saw him, and then he remembered. He said, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, I shall not live if he lives. I shall not live if he lives. I shall not live if he lives. And he started calling the Muslims. Umayyah ibn Khalaf, the enemy of Allah. Abdurrahman ibn Auf told him, Bilal, for God's sake, please, this is my prisoner. Don't do this to me. He's my prisoner. I'm protecting him. And he said, I shall not live if he lives. And he called the people from Ansar and also other slaves who used to be tortured. And they started by killing Ali, the son of Umayyah. And Umayyah burst into tears and started crying. He knew that he was going to die. Abdurrahman ibn Auf told him, go on the floor. sit on the ground. He sat on the ground and he covered him with his body. But the Muslims came with the swords and they chopped him from underneath him and they killed him. And Abdurrahman ibn Auf said, may Allah have mercy on Bilal. He made me lose my shields and he made me lose my prisoners. The hell with him. I could care less about him. But I could care about the money I would have made. I'm afraid that this is all the time we have for today's program. But until we meet next time, I'll leave you inshallah fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.